So it's just a couple of questions, just to kind of get your opinion on certain things. So the first one is, in your opinion, what is the greatest challenge facing humanitarian workers today, and what should be done to improve their access as well as their safety?
Well, I think you have already put the first element of the biggest challenges. You know, humanitarian space and humanitarian access and sustainability of humanitarian action is a daily challenge, and access space or sustainability is always at risk. So one critical factor for access is certainly acceptance. So building on acceptance also requires, it is not something that is gained from one day to the other. So it requires also the localization of aid, and the humanitarian actors are capable to be recognized all the time as neutral, independent, impartial organizations. But to be sustainable in the humanitarian action requires also the different components, because the other challenge, critical challenge, is the diversity of actors now. Now we have a significant diversity of actors, and what is important is how those actors at the same time practice access the space to act, and how they are not putting at risk the capacity to reach to communities. When you have too many actors, probably the risk is that you will have many people doing the same thing, and probably in areas where it's not required, you will have a great amount of people, but in areas where it is required, probably will be restricted.
Also, the second question is, what are the most important positive changes you see within the humanitarian system over the past decade?
Well, I would say that the most important and relevant change is the growing level of technology. So let me give you a practical example. In the registration of beneficiaries in the past, the Red Cross Red Crescent, we used to take approximately 3 minutes to register one person. In today's world, using technology, we have reduced to 2.5 seconds. So this gives you an idea what is possible. The second is the assessments, for example. In the past, we used to have, paper, pen, and accumulation of papers, and then we have to analyze that information to make decisions. Right now, with technology, we can have the information using smartphones or tablets, and that information using informatics already allow us to provide faster decision in terms of what are the key needs and how those needs can be followed. So I would say that is by far one of the most important developments that is now connected with the humanitarian work.
And so on the contrary, what do you think are some of the challenges that humanitarian workers are likely to continue to face going into the future?
Well, again, it's very much related to the first question. But if I can further elaborate, more and more what we are seeing is that we have multidimensional risks and disasters of multidimensional impact. So this means that no longer is a disaster that will not affect different sectors. So when different sectors are going to be in one way or another affected, it's going to be or is more complicated. Let me give an example. If a disaster happens in an urban setting, it could be that there are more violence, as more communication access. It could be more difficult to access to food, because crowds, many people will go and buy everything at once. But at the same time, it could be that there is sufficient conditions to access, right? Or flows of donations coming, etc. But at the end, If you took the example of the flows of donations, are they exactly the needs or not? That's a issue. So multidimensional risk and requires multidimensional participation of sectors. So the different sectors with different specialities and how to interact each other in a way that is effective, that is efficient, becomes a critical challenge. Therefore, collaboration becomes one of the most important components towards the future.
And lastly, we've noted that you served on missions working in disaster risk management in numerous countries around the world. And in your opinion, what is an effective strategy in Southeast Asia? And how does this differ from other regions?
It's an important question. I could take it more from the perspective of the International Federation of Red Cross Red Crescent. Our strategy is tackling three components: urban risks, social risks, and climate risks or environmental risks. Those three components, if you connect in one way or another, of course, are very integral, are very holistic. Because when we say urban risk, we are not forgetting the rural. Because when we are talking environmental risk, we see the connections. Or when we talk about social risk, we see the connections as well. So that strategy, in one way or another, differs, for example, with other regions. If I took in Afghanistan, the situation of Afghanistan, you have a combination of the three, which are completely different from what will be in the different parts of the world, or could be completely different what will be in any country in Southeast Asia, for instance. So, in case by case, the strategies will have to adapt to the reality, to the context, to the needs.
So you don't see that there being any kind of like a Southeast Asian strategy as a region?
No, certainly there could be, there has to be a strategy as a region. The question is, where are the main gaps in the region? What are the main gaps that the region required to approach? And based on that, on those gaps, to say, okay, what are the capacities that we have in place? Because probably we could have greater capacities in certain things and severe deficits in others. So therefore, when you have the proper analysis, then comes on the strategy. But the three components, I'm quite sure applies in any of the strategies for Asia Pacific.
All right, thank you.